Probably like a lot of kids, I played Little League Baseball, and Roberto Clemente was my lifelong hero, and I had these visions of being a professional baseball player, but that ended pretty quickly because all baseball ended in my town after Little League. But I didn't know that. But was involved a lot with athletics. I always knew I was a social kid. I wanted to do something where I would be interacting with people. Like a lot of kids in my era, worked on a farm, manual labor, baling hay, stuff like that. But the fun of that was being around the people, the guys that I worked with, and the work was really hard. But I think I realized early on, I didn't nail down a specific job, but knew I wanted to do something probably involved where I was around people, liked to talk. Hopefully I like to listen too. The first one in my family to go to college. Probably like a lot of students here over the years. So first generation college student. So that was a whole new venture. My dad was a blue collar worker, a farmer, and then worked as a mechanic and a truck driver, and that I saw as jobs. My mom got a job as a social worker, and didn't go to college, but a job as a social worker. So that began to expand kind of my horizons a little bit, that there were jobs again that involved people. I struggled early on because I liked everything, and one of my first really hard decisions was to choose a major. I took classes in science. I loved biology. I liked music a lot, although I wasn't in the choral groups, but I thought about music as a venture. Probably because of my mom's jobs, I ventured into sociology in some of those areas and studied that. Actually wound up finishing with a minor in that, pretty close to a major in that. But really became a business major by default. Figured I could get a job. I always liked school. I always liked the rhythm of education. I liked just the idea of learning and moving through the schedule, the seasons, things that school brought. I wanted to be a history teacher, or I thought I did, but at the time when I was a student, there were no jobs for history teachers at the high school level. So then I kind of got pursuing and looking at my professors to say, what about this crazy notion that I might be able to teach at the college level? And if I was to describe my journey, it's when I started to kind of explore that and float questions out to professors. Thank goodness I had two primary ones, but others who did not laugh at me. As a student in the School of Business at that time, the two main professors were Dr. Harold Linneman, who was chairman of the department and was my advisor, and Dr. Glenn Falls, who was my professor in the accounting area. And really, to confirm this, I approached them, asked them how they got into this career, what was involved, what would I need to do as far as graduate school and those kinds of things. But if kind of a shout out, but also a confirmation. I gave a presentation in a setting where Dr. Falls and Dr. Lindeman were there. And Dr. Falls approached me afterwards and said, have you ever thought about college teaching? Have you ever thought about pursuing that? Now, I'm sure over the years he asked other people that. I wasn't the only one he ever pegged. In fact, I know I'm not the only one he ever approached, tapped. That's the word. He tapped me on the shoulder and said, have you ever thought about this? But that was probably the first. No, I had not. I'm a blue-collar kid. I came to college. I thought that would open up job opportunities for me, but to think about a life really in an academic setting as a professor, no. But I began to then ponder that and think about that. Began to talk with my parents, and of course they were thrilled. They thought that would be tremendous, so nothing but support there. But then began to look and investigate what would that mean. So when I left here as a graduate with a business degree, business major in management and marketing both, and entered business as a profession, that was, I don't say it was in the back of my mind, it was probably about the middle of my mind of wondering what would that mean. When I graduated in 1980, I don't know if you want dates on here, in 1980 when I graduated, U.S. economy was in a fairly deep recession. It affected this area a lot. The automobile industry was really, really hit hard. I moved back to Pennsylvania, where I was from. I was engaged to be married to my high school sweetheart, Susan. And we were getting married that fall, so I think her dad wanted me to have a job. I think that probably was a good thing. So I went back and I answered an ad for a sales position with a financial services business, and I went to work for them. When I prayed my senior year about, God, what should I do? What direction do you have for me? What call do you have for me? I remember distinctly praying this, Lord, I don't care so much about what I make as that I get a chance to enjoy what I do. And I really think, I don't know that God tests us for everything, but He put me in a position where that was going to be tested. Because when I went to work with this company, it was primarily a commission-based sales job. To be honest, I did very, very well. I made far beyond what I ever anticipated making. And there was a great lure to making that kind of money. And I could have stayed in that job and probably done really, really well financially. That was just the way it was set up. I was good at conversing with people. I don't think I was a pushy salesperson. I helped them, providing them a service they were interested in spending money to get, and I made money on that. It was a valuable service. To this day, I don't regret doing that. But I also recognized I was leaving the house at 7 in the morning and getting home at 11 at night. And that was going to be that career. It was going to be very, very hour-based, very intensive, long hours. So I was going to be earning a lot of money, but I wasn't spending any time with my wife. And I didn't like that. Knowing that if I was ever going to be a professor, that meant graduate school, this career that I was in was not going to allow that to happen. So I got a call, unanticipated, from H.L. Baker, who was Dean of Students at Anderson College at that time, and said, Doyle, we have a resident director position that's going to come open at the end of this year. Your name has been presented to me as someone who might be interested. I didn't really know H.L. I never was in trouble as a student much, so I'd never been in to visit his office. So in July that year, we moved back. My wife and I moved here and began our duties as a resident director in a upper-class men's residence hall, Dunn Hall, here on campus. Did that for 3 years, and during that time, then that enabled me, after a year in that job, I was able to start pursuing a master's degree, an MBA, and to test that call to see if I really was supposed to do that. Earlier I said that Dr. Lindeman and Dr. Falls were very supportive. Well, here's where they really stepped up. During that second year as an RD, Dr. Lindeman approached me and said, we have an intro to business class that we need a professor for. Why don't you take this on, and you can see if you like to do this, and we'll see if we like you. And so I had one class, blessings to those poor students who I experimented on, but yeah, about 35 or 40 students. I remember it was a pretty large class. And I did that year and the next year. So I got to teach twice as a part-time faculty member while I was still finishing a master's degree. As God's timing would have it, one of the faculty members was leaving the business school to pursue a doctorate degree, would be gone for 2 years. So Dr. Lindeman pursued me further, and Dr. Falls too, and said, okay, we have a position. Do you still want to do this? We like what you're doing. I know I had long ways to go to develop that craft, but so I finished my master's in August and began teaching as a 25-year-old in September, full-time. And to be honest, I've been pursuing that call for the last 33 years as a professor since that time, and trying to develop this craft.